When a ruthless CEO secretly fires her employees to test their true character, she never expected that the most ordinary man would be the one to shatter her cold world. Ethan Cole, a single father raising his daughter after tragedy, won't beg. He won't fight back. But his unsettling calm will change everything. This is a story about quiet strength, about love surviving cruel tests, and about a powerful woman who must relearn what true strength really means. Stay until the end, hit like, and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story has traveled. Now, let's begin. The dinner rush at Meridian was in full swing when Ethan Cole's world started to crack. He moved through the dining room with the kind of efficiency that comes from muscle memory, not passion. Tray balanced on his left hand, right hand smoothing his apron for the 100th time that shift. The restaurant hummed with the particular energy of wealth. Low voices discussing deals over $30 appetizers, the clink of crystal, the barely there jazz filtering through hidden speakers. Ethan didn't belong to that world. He just served it. "Table 12 needs water," Marcus hissed as they passed in the narrow corridor between kitchen and dining room. "And table 7's been waiting on their check for 10 minutes. Got it." Ethan filled the water glasses first, moving with practiced invisibility. Rich people didn't like to notice the help unless something went wrong. He'd learned that in his 2 years at Meridian. Smile when appropriate, vanish when not, and for the love of everything, don't make eye contact with Victoria Hale. The owner sat at her usual corner table, laptop open, barely touching her salad. She came in 3 nights a week, always alone, always working. Ethan had served her exactly twice, both times leaving with the distinct feeling he'd been weighed and found wanting. She had a way of looking at people, straight through them, really, that made his skin itch. He dropped the check at table 7, pocketed a mediocre tip, and was heading back to the kitchen when his phone buzzed in his pocket. Lily's teacher. Not now. He silenced it without looking. Whatever it was, it could wait until his shift ended at 11. Lily was safe with Mrs. Chen next door, probably already asleep. Everything else was just details. Ethan, office, now. Gerald, the floor manager, stood by the kitchen door with his arms crossed. His expression gave nothing away, but Ethan's stomach dropped anyway. Nobody got called to the office during dinner service unless something was seriously wrong. "I'm in the middle of now." The walk through the restaurant felt longer than it should have. Ethan was aware of every step, every face he passed. Marcus gave him a questioning look. Sarah, one of the senior servers, deliberately didn't meet his eyes. That was worse somehow. The office was small, utilitarian. Gerald closed the door behind them. "Sit down." Ethan sat. His mind raced through possibilities. Had he screwed up an order, offended a customer? He'd been careful, he was always careful, but sometimes careful wasn't enough. Gerald didn't sit. He stayed standing, hands in his pockets, and that's when Ethan knew. "We're letting you go." The words hit like a punch to the gut. Ethan opened his mouth, closed it, his heart hammered against his ribs. "What? Why?" "Performance issues. Multiple complaints about your service quality." "That's not—" "I haven't had any complaints. Who complained?" "I'm not at liberty to discuss specific incidents." Gerald's tone was flat, rehearsed. "We'll pay you through the end of the week. You can collect your things and leave tonight." Ethan's hands gripped the armrests. He wanted to argue, to demand proof, to make Gerald look him in the eye and tell him what he'd actually done wrong. But something in Gerald's expression stopped him, a kind of discomfort that suggested he didn't entirely believe his own words. This wasn't about performance. This was about something else. "I have a daughter," Ethan said quietly. "I need this job. I'm sorry, the decision's been made." "Then let me talk to Ms. Hale. She can—" Ms. Hale made the decision. The room seemed to tilt. Victoria Hale, the woman he'd barely spoken to, who barely knew he existed. She decided his fate over her untouched salad, and now he was supposed to just accept it. Ethan stood. His legs felt unsteady. "Can I ask you something?" Gerald shifted his weight. "What?" "Is this real, or is this some kind of test?" The question hung in the air between them. Gerald's expression flickered, just for a second, with something that might have been surprise. "I don't know what you mean." "Yes, you do." Ethan's voice was steady now. I've heard the stories about employees getting fired and then offered their jobs back a week later, about Ms. Hale testing people to see how they react. Gerald's jaw tightened. Those are rumors. Are they? You need to leave. Ethan nodded slowly. He turned toward the door, then stopped. If this is real, if I'm actually fired, I have one request. I'm not in a position to grant requests. Tell Ms. Hale something for me. Ethan met Gerald's eyes. Tell her I don't blame her. Tell her I understand that business is business. And tell her that when my daughter asks why I lost my job, I won't say it's because I failed. I'll tell her sometimes things happen that are outside our control, and the only thing we can control is how we respond. He paused at the door. Tell her my daughter will never know I wasn't good enough. Gerald didn't respond. Ethan left the office, walked through the kitchen without looking at anyone, and collected his jacket from his locker. His hands shook as he buttoned it. 2 years of perfect attendance, of taking every shift offered, of smiling through exhaustion, gone. Just like that. The night air hit him like a slap. October in the city carried a bite, and Ethan hadn't worn a warm enough coat. He stood on the sidewalk outside Meridian's gleaming entrance and tried to remember how to breathe. His phone buzzed again. Lily's teacher. He'd deal with that tomorrow. Right now he needed to figure out how to pay next month's rent. Victoria Hale watched the security camera feed on her laptop with the focus she usually reserved for quarterly reports. Ethan Cole stood on the sidewalk outside her restaurant, hands shoved in his jacket pockets, breath visible in the cold air. He stood there for 3 full minutes before he started walking. Not quickly, not slowly, just walking. Well? Gerald appeared on screen, moving into her corner table's sightline. How did he do? Victoria closed the laptop. He asked if it was a test. That's never happened before. No. She picked up her water glass, set it down without drinking. What did you tell him? That I didn't know what he meant. He didn't push it, just asked me to pass along a message. What message? Gerald recited Ethan's words verbatim. He had a good memory for that sort of thing. One reason Victoria kept him around. When he finished, she sat very still. He said that? Those exact words? Yes. Victoria drummed her fingers on the table. She'd been doing this test for 3 years now, ever since she'd taken over Meridian from her father. Fire a random employee without cause, observe their reaction, then offer them their job back with a raise if they passed. It was brutal, yes. Possibly illegal. But it separated the survivors from the victims, the ones who would fight from the ones who would crumble. Most people begged. Some cried. A few got angry, made threats. One memorable case involved a server throwing a full tray of dishes against the office wall. Victoria had hired a lawyer for that one, but Ethan Cole had simply accepted it. More than that, he'd tried to protect his daughter from the truth. What do you want me to do? Gerald asked. Give him his job back tomorrow morning. The usual terms. Apology, raise, sign the NDA. He's going to know it was a test. He already knows. Victoria opened her laptop again, pulling up Ethan's employee file. 2 years at Meridian. Never late, never called in sick, consistently high performance reviews from customers who bothered to fill them out. Previous employment, construction, warehouse work, a brief stint at a grocery store. Before that, nothing in the system. I want to know why someone this competent is working as a server. Maybe he likes it. Nobody likes being a server, Gerald. They tolerate it because they need the money. She scrolled through the notes. He has a daughter. What else do we know? Not much. He keeps to himself. Doesn't socialize with the other staff. I think Marcus mentioned once that his wife died, but I don't know the details. Victoria made a note to find out the details. She didn't believe in hiring people without understanding what motivated them. Fear, greed, ambition, survival, everyone had a button. She just needed to find Ethan Coles. Call him first thing tomorrow, 8 a.m. Tell him we made a mistake, the complaints were meant for someone else, whatever. Get him back on the schedule. Gerald nodded and left. Victoria returned to her salad, which had gone cold. She ate it anyway. Waste annoyed her. Her phone rang. Board member. She let it go to voicemail. The security feed was still up on her laptop, showing the now empty sidewalk where Ethan had stood. She closed it and pulled up her email instead. 63 new messages since she'd sat down 20 minutes ago. The price of running 3 restaurants, a catering company, and a commercial real estate portfolio. Her father used to say that business was war conducted by other means. You didn't win by being nice. You won by being smarter, faster, and willing to do what others wouldn't. Victoria had built her empire on that principle. She was 38 years old, worth $40 million, and completely alone. That was the trade. She'd accepted it years ago. So why did Ethan Cole's quiet dignity bother her so much? Ethan made it 3 blocks before he had to stop and sit down. There was a bus shelter with a bench, empty at this hour. He sank onto it and put his head in his hands. His chest felt tight. Not a panic attack. He knew what those felt like. But something close. Rent was due in 2 weeks. He had maybe $800 in savings. Lily needed new shoes. The heating bill for their building was going up in November. Mrs. Chen charged $20 a night to watch Lily, and he'd been planning to pick up extra shifts to cover it. Extra shifts that no longer existed. His phone buzzed. He pulled it out, finally looking at the notifications from Lily's teacher. "Hi, Mr. Cole. Just wanted to follow up on our conversation from this afternoon. Lily's been having some trouble focusing in class. Nothing serious, but I'd like to set up a meeting to discuss strategies. When works for you?" Ethan stared at the message. Conversation from this afternoon? He hadn't talked to Lily's teacher this afternoon. He'd been at work. He scrolled up. 3 missed calls. A voicemail. He played it. "Mr. Cole, this is Jennifer Chen from Oakwood Elementary. I tried calling around too, but I know you're usually at work. Nothing to worry about, but Lily's been a bit withdrawn lately, and she mentioned her mom today in a way that concerned me. I think she might be processing some feelings she hasn't expressed before. Could we set up a time to talk? Again, nothing urgent, but I want to make sure we're all on the same page about supporting her. Thanks." Ethan closed his eyes. Lily had been 4 when Emma died. 4 years old, barely old enough to understand that Mommy wasn't coming back. The grief counselor had warned him that it might resurface as she got older, as she became more capable of understanding what she'd lost. He'd thought they were past it. Lily seemed happy. She laughed at cartoons, played with her dolls, talked about her friends at school. She called him Daddy and held his hand and told him about her day every night before bed. But maybe he'd been seeing what he wanted to see. The bus shelter's plastic walls blocked most of the wind, but Ethan still shivered. He should go home. Mrs. Chen would charge him extra if he was late, and he couldn't afford extra anything right now. He stood, started walking. The apartment was 40 minutes on foot, but the bus cost $3 and he needed every dollar. Somewhere around block 7, his phone rang again. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Hello? Mr. Cole, this is Angela from St. Catherine's Medical Billing. I'm calling about an outstanding balance on your account." Ethan's stomach lurched. "I paid that 3 months ago. I'm showing a payment was received, but it was applied to a different account by mistake. You still have a balance of $843 from your daughter's ER visit in June. That's not, I paid it in full. I have the receipt. If you could fax or email a copy of that receipt, we can investigate. In the meantime, the account has been sent to collections." "Collections? You can't—" Ethan stopped walking. "I paid. I did everything right." "I understand your frustration, Mr. Cole. If you can provide documentation, we'll certainly review it. Do you have a fax number I can use?" "No, I don't have a fax machine. Who has a fax machine?" "You can email it to medical-billing@st-catharines.org. Once we receive it, please allow 5 to 7 business days for processing." Ethan wanted to throw the phone into traffic. Instead, he said, "Fine, I'll send it tomorrow." He hung up, kept walking. His jaw ached from clenching it. The universe had a funny way of piling things on all at once. Lost job, daughter struggling, medical bills from a mistake he didn't make. And tomorrow he had to wake up and smile at Lily and pretend everything was fine because that's what parents did. By the time he reached his building, his feet hurt and his mind was numb. The apartment was on the 3rd floor, no elevator. He climbed the stairs slowly. Mrs. Chen answered on the first knock. She was 70-something, impossibly spry, and had lived in the building longer than Ethan had been alive. "Late tonight," she observed. "Sorry, work ran over." Lily's asleep. She ate all her dinner, finished her homework, brushed her teeth. Good girl. She always is. Ethan pulled a 20 from his wallet, then added another 10. For the extra time. Mrs. Chen pocketed the money without comment. She asked about her mother today. Ethan's hand froze on the doorknob. What did she say? She wanted to know if I knew her. I said no. You moved here after. She said she wished she could remember her better. Mrs. Chen's expression softened. I told her that love doesn't need memory, that she carries her mother in the way she smiles, the way she laughs. I hope that was all right. It was perfect. Thank you. Mrs. Chen patted his arm and shuffled back to her apartment. Ethan let himself into his own, locking the door quietly behind him. The apartment was small, living room, kitchenette, one bedroom, bathroom. Lily's drawings covered the refrigerator. Her backpack hung on a hook by the door. Her shoes, too small now, he noticed, sat in a neat line on the mat. He checked on her first. She was curled under her blanket, dark hair spread across the pillow, breathing deep and even. Her nightlight cast stars across the ceiling. Ethan stood in the doorway and watched her sleep. 6 years old, first grade. Favorite color purple. Favorite food macaroni and cheese. Favorite activity drawing pictures of houses with families inside. She deserved better than this. Better than a cramped apartment and secondhand clothes and a father who was always tired, always working, always one emergency away from complete collapse. But she had him. And he had her. And somehow they'd make it work. They always did. Victoria left Meridian at midnight. Her driver was waiting, but she waved him off. She wanted to walk. The city was different at night, quieter, sharper, honest. During the day, everyone wore masks. At night, the masks came off. Her penthouse was 16 blocks north. She walked them all, heels clicking on concrete, hands in her coat pockets. The test had bothered her. That wasn't supposed to happen. But she developed it 3 years ago after firing a floor manager who'd been skimming from the register. The man had fallen apart in her office, sobbing, begging, offering to do anything if she'd just give him another chance. It was pathetic, and it made her wonder how many other people on her staff were one bad day away from pathetic. So she'd started testing them. Random terminations, carefully documented, always with Gerald as a witness. Most failed. Some passed. The ones who passed got their jobs back and usually stayed loyal for years. It was effective. Brutal, but effective. Ethan Cole, though, he'd done something none of the others had done. He'd protected someone else. Victoria turned onto her street. The buildings here were pre-war, expensive, occupied by people who valued privacy over flash. Her penthouse took up the entire top floor of a 12-story building her company owned. The doorman nodded as she entered. She took the elevator up, letting herself into the apartment and dropping her bag on the marble entryway table. Silence. She poured herself 2 fingers of scotch and stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Lights stretched in every direction, a glittering web of commerce and ambition. Her father had stood at these same windows and told her that sentiment was the enemy of success, that the moment you started caring about people more than results, you lost. He'd built his empire on that principle, and she'd inherited it. But sometimes, late at night, Victoria wondered what it would be like to build something different, something that didn't require quite so much distance between herself and the rest of humanity. She finished her scotch and went to bed. Tomorrow, Gerald would call Ethan Cole and offer him his job back. He'd accept, they always did, and life would continue. The test would fade into memory, just another data point in her understanding of human nature. Except it wouldn't, because Ethan Cole had looked at the loss of his livelihood and thought first of his daughter. And Victoria couldn't stop thinking about what kind of person did that. Ethan woke up to Lily standing beside his couch bed, her stuffed rabbit dangling from one hand. "Daddy, you're sleeping in the living room again." He blinked. Pale morning light filtered through the curtains. His neck ached from the awkward angle of the couch. "Hey, baby, what time is it?" 7:15. We have to leave in 20 minutes. Right. School. Ethan sat up, running a hand through his hair. He'd given Lily the bedroom when they moved in 2 years ago. He told her it was because she needed space to play, but really it was because she deserved a door that closed, walls that were hers. "I'll make breakfast. Go brush your teeth." Lily scampered off. Ethan stood, stretching out the kinks in his spine. The apartment was cold. He turned up the thermostat, knowing he shouldn't but unable to help it. Lily had been sniffling last week. He couldn't risk her getting sick. Breakfast was cereal with milk and a banana sliced on top. Lily ate at the small folding table while Ethan made himself instant coffee and tried not to think about the fact that he had nowhere to be today. "Mrs. Chen said you were late last night," Lily said through a mouthful of Cheerios. "Work ran long. Don't talk with your mouth full." She swallowed dramatically. "Are you working tonight too?" "I don't know yet." The lie tasted bitter. "Eat your banana." "I don't like bananas anymore." "Since when?" "Since today." Ethan almost argued, then decided it wasn't worth it. "Fine, leave it." Lily beamed at this small victory. She finished her cereal, put her bowl in the sink, and ran to get her backpack. Ethan watched her go, this bright, resilient creature who'd survived more loss than any kid should have to. Emma would have known what to say to her. Emma had been good at the emotional stuff. The hugs and reassurance and bedtime talks. Ethan tried, but he always felt like he was stumbling through it, hoping he didn't screw up too badly. "Ready!" Lily appeared with her backpack and coat. They left the apartment together, Ethan locking the door behind them. The walk to Oakwood Elementary took 15 minutes. Lily chattered the whole way, about her friend Sophie, about the art project they were doing, about the hamster in their classroom named Mr. Nibbles. Ethan listened and responded in the right places, but his mind was elsewhere. He needed to call Gerald back as soon as the school day started. Maybe grovel a little. Maybe there had been a mistake. Maybe, "Daddy, you're not listening," he snapped back. "But, sorry, baby, what did you say?" "I said Mrs. Peters wants to talk to you." "I know, she called yesterday. We'll set up a meeting." "Am I in trouble?" "No, nobody's in trouble. She just wants to check in." Lily seemed to accept this. They reached the school and Ethan walked her to the entrance. She hugged him hard around the waist, her head barely reaching his chest. "Love you, Daddy." "Love you too, Lily Bean." She ran inside, backpack bouncing. Ethan watched until she disappeared into the building, then turned and walked back the way they'd come. His phone rang at exactly 8 a.m. "This is Ethan." "Mr. Cole, it's Gerald from Meridian. Do you have a minute to talk?" Ethan's heart hammered. "Yeah, I have a minute. I owe you an apology. There was a miscommunication regarding some customer complaints. The issues weren't with your service. They were directed at another employee with a similar schedule. We pulled the wrong file." The lie was so smooth, so practiced, that for a second Ethan almost believed it. "So I'm not fired." "You're not fired. We'd like you back on the schedule starting tomorrow, if you're available. And we'd like to offer you a raise, $2 an hour, as an apology for the confusion." Ethan stopped walking. $2 an hour. That's correct. Plus, if you could sign some paperwork acknowledging the error, we'd appreciate it. Just standard HR stuff. A non-disclosure agreement. Gerald didn't say it, but Ethan heard it anyway. "What if I say no?" There was a pause. "I'm sorry? What if I say the raise isn't enough? That I want answers about why this really happened?" Another pause, longer this time. "I'm not sure I understand." "Yes, you do." Ethan started walking again. "But that's okay. I'll take the job back. I'll sign your paperwork. Not because I believe you, but because I don't have a choice. When do you need me?" "Tomorrow at 4. And Mr. Cole?" "Yeah?" "Ms. Hale asked me to tell you that she appreciates your professionalism." The call ended. Ethan stood on the sidewalk, phone in hand, and felt absolutely nothing. He had his job back. He could pay rent. Lily could have new shoes, and Victoria Hale had just confirmed that she'd been testing him. The smart move was to take the raise, keep his head down, and forget this ever happened. The smart move was to be grateful. But Ethan had learned a long time ago that being smart didn't protect you from anything. Emma had been smart. She'd been careful, healthy, young. And she'd still died in a car accident on her way home from the grocery store, leaving him alone with a 2-year-old and a grief so vast he'd nearly drowned in it. You couldn't plan for everything. You couldn't protect everyone. All you could do was show up, do your best, and hope it was enough. Ethan went home, dug the medical billing receipt out of his filing cabinet, and scanned it at the library. He emailed it to St. Catherine's. He called Lily's teacher and scheduled a meeting for Friday afternoon. Then he sat on his couch and stared at the wall until it was time to pick Lily up from school. Huss. Victoria watched the security footage of Ethan Cole's morning shift with more attention than it deserved. He was good at his job. That was the first thing she noticed. Fast, efficient, anticipating customer needs before they asked. He didn't schmooze or flirt the way some servers did. His tips probably suffered for it, but he also didn't make mistakes. The second thing she noticed was that he looked tired. Not just end-of-shift tired. Bone-deep tired. The kind that came from not enough sleep and too much worry. "You're watching him again." Victoria glanced up. Her assistant, Michelle, stood in the doorway of her office with a knowing expression. "I'm monitoring employee performance." "Uh-huh. Is that why you've pulled up his file 3 times today?" "Twice, and I'm allowed to be thorough." Michelle set a folder on Victoria's desk. "New vendor contracts. They need signatures by Friday." Victoria opened the folder but didn't look at it. "What do you know about Ethan Cole?" "The server you just tortured? Not much. He keeps to himself. Some of the staff think he's stuck up, but I think he's just private. He has a daughter. Yeah, cute kid. I saw her once when he brought her by to get his paycheck. She drew a picture for Gerald, a dinosaur wearing a chef's hat." Victoria had seen that picture. It was pinned to the bulletin board in the kitchen, alongside birthday announcements and shift schedules. "Find out more about his background, quietly." Michelle raised an eyebrow. "Quietly how?" "I don't know. Talk to people. Check his references. Whatever you normally do." "I normally don't do background checks on employees we've already hired." "Consider this an exception." Michelle left, shaking her head. Victoria returned to the security footage, watching Ethan navigate a difficult customer with the same calm he'd shown when Gerald fired him. There was something there, something she couldn't quite define. Most people bent under pressure. They lashed out or collapsed. Ethan Cole just endured. Victoria had built her career on reading people, on finding their weaknesses and leveraging them. But Ethan's weakness was also his strength, his daughter. He'd sacrifice anything for her, which made him simultaneously vulnerable and untouchable. It was fascinating. Her phone buzzed. Board meeting in 20 minutes. She closed the laptop and gathered her materials. By the time she reached the conference room, she'd compartmentalized Ethan Cole into the back of her mind. Business required focus. Sentiment was weakness. Her father's voice in her head, "You don't build empires by caring about the help." But that night, alone in her penthouse with the city glittering below, Victoria opened her laptop again and watched Ethan Cole serve table after table with quiet competence. And she wondered what it would take to break someone like that. More importantly, she wondered why she wanted to know. 3 weeks passed before Victoria spoke directly to Ethan again. She told herself it was coincidence. Their schedules simply didn't align. But Michelle saw through it immediately. "You're avoiding him," her assistant said one afternoon, dropping a stack of invoices on Victoria's desk. "I'm running 3 restaurants. I don't have time to avoid anyone." "You rearranged your entire week so you wouldn't be at Meridian during his shifts." Victoria didn't look up from her laptop. "That's called efficient time management." Michelle left without another word, but her expression said plenty. Victoria tried to focus on the spreadsheet in front of her, but the numbers blurred. She closed the laptop. The truth was messier than she wanted to admit. Watching Ethan on security footage was one thing: clinical, distant, safe. But seeing him in person meant acknowledging that her test had shifted something she didn't quite understand. He'd looked at being fired and thought of his daughter first. That kind of selflessness was supposed to be a weakness. It was supposed to make him easy to manipulate. Instead, it made Victoria uncomfortable. Her phone buzzed. "Gerald, we have a situation," he said without preamble. "What kind of situation?" "Customer complaint, table 9. They're demanding to speak to you personally." Victoria checked her watch, 4:30. She had a conference call at 5. "Handle it." "I tried. They're threatening to post on social media about poor service unless they talk to the owner. It's the Hendersons. They've been coming here for years." She sighed. "Fine. I'll be there in 20 minutes. The drive to Meridian gave her time to shift mental gears. Customer complaints were usually about control, not actual problems. People wanted to feel heard, validated, important. Give them 5 minutes of attention, and they'd leave happy, crisis averted. But when she walked into the restaurant, the crisis was bigger than she'd anticipated. Mrs. Henderson stood near the host stand, voice raised, gesturing wildly. Her husband looked embarrassed, and Ethan stood perfectly still a few feet away, face neutral, hands clasped behind his back. Completely unacceptable. I asked for no cilantro 3 times, and look at this. Mrs. Henderson thrust her plate forward. Cilantro, everywhere. I apologize for the error, Ethan said quietly. I'll have them remake it immediately. I don't want it remade. I want an explanation for why you can't follow simple instructions. Victoria stepped forward. Mrs. Henderson, I'm Victoria Hale. I understand there's been a problem with your meal. Mrs. Henderson's expression shifted from outrage to satisfaction. Finally, someone who takes this seriously. I take all concerns seriously. Why don't you tell me what happened? The story tumbled out, a litany of minor complaints wrapped around the cilantro issue. Wrong water temperature, bread arrived too slowly, the music was too loud. Classic displacement. Something else was bothering Mrs. Henderson, and she was taking it out on the restaurant. Victoria listened, nodded in the right places, and offered a full refund, plus a complimentary meal on their next visit. Mrs. Henderson accepted with minimal grace and left with her mortified husband in tow. Ethan hadn't moved. You handled that well, Victoria said. He met her eyes for the first time since she'd arrived. She wasn't actually angry about cilantro. No, she wasn't. Victoria studied him. Up close, the exhaustion was more obvious, shadows under his eyes, a tightness around his mouth. How long have you been on shift? Since 11. 5.5 hours. Take your break, 30 minutes. I'm fine. That wasn't a suggestion. Victoria softened her tone slightly. You can't serve customers effectively if you're running on empty. Something flickered across his face, surprise maybe. He nodded once and headed toward the back. Victoria returned to her corner table and opened her laptop, but she couldn't concentrate. She kept replaying the interaction in her mind. Ethan's stillness while being berated. The way he'd absorbed Mrs. Henderson's anger without flinching. Most people would have gotten defensive or upset. He'd just stood there, like he was used to it. Michelle had sent over the background information she'd requested. Victoria opened the file, skimming through the details. Ethan Cole, 32. Born in Michigan, moved around a lot as a kid. 7 different schools before graduating high school. No college. Married Emma Richardson at 24. Daughter Lily born a year later. Emma died in a car accident 4 years ago. Since then, Ethan had worked a string of jobs. Construction, warehouse, retail. Nothing stuck for more than 18 months. Until Meridian. 2 years at the same place was practically a career for him. Victoria dug deeper. No criminal record. Credit score was terrible. Multiple late payments, some collections, but no bankruptcies. Current address was a rent-controlled apartment in a marginal neighborhood. Annual income, including tips, probably hovered around $35,000. In Manhattan, that was poverty. Ms. Hale? She looked up. Ethan stood beside her table, looking uncomfortable. I wanted to thank you for handling that situation. It's my restaurant. It's what I do. Still, most owners would have blamed the server. Victoria closed her laptop. Did you actually forget to tell the kitchen about the cilantro? No. I put the modification in the system. Someone missed it. And you didn't throw them under the bus. His expression didn't change. Wouldn't have helped anything. Victoria gestured to the empty chair across from her. Sit. Ethan hesitated, then sat. He looked profoundly out of place. A server sitting at a table with the owner, breaking a dozen unspoken rules. How's your daughter? Victoria asked. His shoulders tensed slightly. She's fine. You mentioned her when Gerald fired you. You said you didn't want her to know you'd failed. I remember what I said. That's an interesting way to frame getting fired, as personal failure. Ethan met her gaze steadily. What else would you call it? A business decision that had nothing to do with your competence. Right, because that's what it was. No sarcasm in his voice, just stating a fact. Victoria found herself leaning forward slightly. You knew it was a test. I suspected. But you didn't call me out on it. You didn't make demands or threaten legal action. Why? Ethan was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was measured. Because whether it was real or a test didn't change what I needed to do. I needed to stay calm, make sure Lily was taken care of, figure out my next move. Getting angry wouldn't have changed anything. Most people can't separate their emotions from their circumstances that cleanly. Most people don't have to. The statement hung between them. Victoria realized she was staring and forced herself to look away. Your break's almost over. Ethan stood. Thank you for the conversation. He walked away before Victoria could respond. She watched him go, then opened her laptop again and stared at his employee file without reading it. Something about Ethan Cole pulled at her in a way she couldn't define. It wasn't attraction, though he was objectively good-looking in an understated way. It was something else, something that felt like recognition. She'd spent her whole life learning to compartmentalize emotion, to make decisions based on logic rather than feeling. Ethan had learned the same lesson, but for completely different reasons. Victoria stayed at Meridian until closing, telling herself it was to observe operations. But really, she was watching Ethan, the way he moved through the dining room, how he handled difficult customers with the same unshakable calm. The moment near the end of his shift when he checked his phone and his whole face softened, probably a text from his daughter. When he left at 11:15, Victoria was still at her table. He didn't look her way. She drove home in silence, parked in her building's garage, and rode the elevator to her penthouse. The apartment was dark and quiet. She poured scotch she didn't drink and stood at the windows overlooking the city. Her father had taught her that sentiment was weakness, that caring about people made you vulnerable. And for 38 years she'd believed him. But watching Ethan Cole quietly endure things that would break most people, Victoria wondered if maybe strength came in different forms than she'd been taught. The thought unsettled her enough that she finished the scotch after all. Friday afternoon, Ethan sat in a too-small chair across from Lily's teacher and tried to look like he had his life together. Mrs. Peters was young, earnest, probably 26. She smiled too much. Thanks for coming in, Mr. Cole. I know it's hard with your work schedule. It's fine. Ethan had swapped shifts with Marcus, who'd asked too many questions. You said Lily's been having some trouble. Not trouble exactly. More like she's been quieter than usual, less engaged in class activities, and she's been drawing a lot during free time. She always draws. I know, but the content has shifted. Mrs. Peters pulled out a folder. These are from the last 2 weeks. She spread the drawings across her desk. Ethan's chest tightened. They were all the same. A house, 2 stick figures, one big, one small. And off to the side, separate from the house, another stick figure. Sometimes it was floating. Sometimes it was just standing there. But it was always apart. Who's that? Ethan pointed to the isolated figure. When I asked, Lily said it was her mom, watching over her. Ethan stared at the drawings. Lily had been 2 when Emma died. She barely remembered her mother's face, her voice, the way she laughed. Everything Lily knew about Emma came from Ethan's stories, from photographs, from secondhand memory. Is this something I should be worried about? He asked quietly. Not necessarily. Children process grief differently than adults. Sometimes it comes in waves, triggered by developmental milestones or changes in their environment. Mrs. Peters paused. Has anything changed at home recently? Ethan thought about the firing, the panic, the medical bills, the constant low-grade stress of trying to keep everything together. No, everything's the same. Mrs. Peters didn't look convinced, but she didn't push. I think it might help if Lily talked to someone. The school has a counselor who specializes in childhood grief. Just a few sessions, very gentle. What do you think? What Ethan thought was that he couldn't afford therapy. School counselors were free, but anything beyond that meant insurance copays and appointments during work hours, and explaining to Lily why she needed help. Can I think about it? Of course. In the meantime, just keep the lines of communication open. Let her talk about her mom if she wants to. Don't avoid the subject. Ethan gathered the drawings and stood. Thank you for telling me. He walked out of the school feeling like he'd failed some fundamental test of fatherhood. He was supposed to protect Lily from pain, and instead she was processing trauma he hadn't even noticed. The walk home took longer than usual. Ethan stopped at a small park and sat on a bench, Lily's drawings in his lap. The isolated stick figure appeared in every single one, always watching, always separate. His phone buzzed. Marcus, Gerald's looking for you. Wants to know if you can cover tomorrow night. Double time. Ethan stared at the message. Tomorrow was Saturday, his only full day off. He'd promised Lily they'd go to the museum, something they'd been planning for weeks. But double time was double time, and the medical bill was still in collections, and rent was due again in 2 weeks, and Lily needed new shoes. He texted back, tell him yes. Then he texted Mrs. Chen to ask about babysitting Saturday. She responded immediately, of course, regular rate. Ethan put his phone away and looked at the drawings again. The isolated stick figure stared back at him, permanent marker on construction paper, a ghost that wouldn't fade. When he picked Lily up from aftercare, she ran to him with a gap-toothed smile, backpack bouncing. Daddy, can we get ice cream? Not today, baby. Her face fell. You always say not today. I know, I'm sorry. But we'll do something special this weekend, okay? Lily's expression told him she didn't believe him, but she didn't argue. They walked home in silence, her small hand in his. That night, after Lily was asleep, Ethan sat at the kitchen table and looked at the budget he'd been avoiding. No matter how he rearranged the numbers, they didn't add up. Even with the raise from Meridian, he was short every month. And that was before unexpected expenses, sick days, school field trips, clothes that wore out faster than they should. He could pick up more shifts, work doubles, sleep less. But he was already barely seeing Lily as it was. There was no good answer, just degrees of bad. Ethan closed the laptop and went to stand in Lily's doorway. She slept with her rabbit tucked under one arm, peaceful and small, and trusting that her father would keep the world from crushing her. He had no idea how to do that anymore. Victoria found herself at Meridian 3 nights in a row that week. Michelle noticed, of course. You're going to have to talk to him eventually. I talked to him on Tuesday. You asked him to sit down, interrogated him about his coping mechanisms, then dismissed him. That's not a conversation. That's a psychological evaluation. Victoria signed off on a vendor invoice without reading it. I don't know what you want me to say. How about, I'm sorry for putting you through a needlessly cruel test. That would be a start. He got his job back. He got a raise. He's fine. Michelle set down the papers she'd been holding. You know, for someone who prides themselves on reading people, you're incredibly bad at understanding what actually hurts them. She left before Victoria could respond. The words sat heavy. Victoria tried to focus on work, but her concentration was shot. She found herself pulling up the security feed again, watching Ethan move through his shift with mechanical efficiency. Something was off. He was slower than usual, making small mistakes, forgetting drink refills, mixing up table numbers. Nothing catastrophic, but not his normal standard either. Victoria checked the schedule. He'd worked 6 days straight, including a double on Saturday. She called Gerald. Why is Ethan Cole working so many shifts? He requested them, said he needed the hours. How many is he working this week? Gerald paused. 53. That's illegal. Technically, he's classified as part-time, so the overtime rules are different, and he signed a waiver. Victoria's jaw tightened. Cut his hours, 40 maximum. He's not going to be happy about that. I don't care. Do it. She hung up before Gerald could argue. Then she sat at her desk and wondered why she was interfering in an employee's schedule when she'd never done that before. The answer was uncomfortable. She didn't want to watch Ethan work himself into the ground, didn't want to see his exhaustion deepen, didn't want to be responsible for contributing to whatever pressure was crushing him. Sentiment is weakness, her father's voice whispered. Victoria ignored it. That evening, she was still at Meridian when Ethan's shift ended. He stopped at the host stand to check out, noticed her at her usual table, and hesitated. Then he walked over. Can I help you with something? His voice was polite, professional, empty. Sit. I'm off the clock. I know. Sit anyway. Ethan sat, but his posture screamed discomfort. Victoria closed her laptop. Gerald cut your hours. His expression hardened. Why? Because you were working 53 hours a week, and that's unsustainable. That's my decision. Well, not when it affects your performance. You made 3 mistakes tonight. Minor mistakes. Mistakes you wouldn't have made if you weren't exhausted. Victoria kept her voice level. Why do you need the extra hours? Ethan looked at her for a long moment. Respectfully, That's none of your business. You're my employee. Your well-being is my business. My well-being is fine. Is it? Victoria leaned back slightly. Because from where I'm sitting, you look like someone barely holding it together. Ethan's hands flexed on the table. I need the hours. If you won't give them to me here, I'll find them somewhere else. You're already working full-time. Where else could you possibly fit more hours? He didn't answer. The silence stretched. Victoria made a decision she knew was crossing a line. How much do you need? Excuse me? Money. How much do you need? Ethan's face went carefully blank. I'm not taking a loan from you. I'm not offering a loan. I'm offering a raise. $3 more an hour. In exchange for maintaining reasonable working hours and not running yourself into the ground. Why? It was a fair question. Victoria didn't have a good answer. Because burned-out employees make mistakes. Mistakes cost me money. This is cheaper in the long run. Ethan didn't believe her. She could see it in his eyes, but he also couldn't afford to refuse. Fine, he said quietly. $3 more. 40 hours maximum. Good. He stood to leave, then paused. Why do you care? Victoria met his gaze. I don't. This is business. Ethan nodded slowly, like he was confirming something to himself. Then he left. Victoria sat alone at her table and knew she'd just lied to both of them. TM. The raise helped, but not enough. Ethan ran the numbers 3 times, hoping they'd somehow change. They didn't. With the medical bill in collections and rent increasing in January, he was still short $200 a month, and that was before anything unexpected happened. He picked up a weekend gig washing dishes at a diner near his apartment, 4-hour shifts on Saturday and Sunday mornings. It paid cash under the table and didn't interfere with Meridian. Lily noticed immediately. You're never home anymore, she said one Sunday evening, coloring at the kitchen table while Ethan made dinner. I'm home right now. But you weren't this morning or yesterday, and you worked late all last week. Ethan stirred pasta that didn't need stirring. I'm working so we can do fun things together, like that museum trip we've been planning. When are we going? Soon. You always say soon. Lily pressed her crayon so hard it broke. She stared at the pieces, then burst into tears. Ethan abandoned the stove and knelt beside her chair. Hey, it's okay. It's just a crayon. I don't care about the stupid crayon. Lily's face was red, tears streaming. I want you to stop working all the time. The words hit like a fist to the chest. Ethan pulled her into his arms, and she cried against his shoulder, small body shaking. I'm sorry, he murmured. I'm so sorry, baby. I miss you. The words were muffled against his shirt. And I miss Mommy. And I hate everything. Ethan held her tighter. He didn't have answers, didn't have solutions. All he had was this, arms around his daughter, promises he wasn't sure he could keep, and a bone-deep exhaustion that made thinking straight almost impossible. Eventually, Lily's crying slowed. Ethan carried her to the couch, and they sat together, her curled against his side. Tell me about Mommy, she said quietly. So Ethan told her about how Emma used to sing off-key in the shower, how she burned everything she tried to bake but made perfect scrambled eggs, how she'd wanted to name Lily something else, Sophia. But the moment she saw her, she'd said, no, she's definitely a Lily. Lily listened, soaking up the stories like water. Do you think she sees us? Ethan thought about the drawings, the isolated stick figure watching from a distance. Yeah, I think she does. Good. I drew her a picture at school of our family, so she knows we're okay. The pasta was overcooked and the sauce was cold, but they ate dinner together on the couch anyway. Lily fell asleep halfway through a cartoon, and Ethan carried her to bed. He stood in her doorway for a long time, watching her breathe. He was failing her, working too much, present too little, running in place while the world demanded more than he had to give. But he didn't know how to stop. His phone buzzed, text from a number he didn't recognize. This is Victoria Hale. I need to speak with you. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., my office at Meridian. It's important. Ethan stared at the message. He was scheduled to work tomorrow, but not until 4. He could make it. He texted back, I'll be there. Then he sat on the couch in the dark and wondered what new disaster was waiting for him now. Ethan arrived at Meridian 15 minutes early and spent the time sitting in his car, trying to prepare for whatever was coming. Getting fired again seemed most likely. Maybe Victoria had reconsidered the raise. Maybe she'd decided his performance wasn't worth the investment. Maybe this was another test, more elaborate than the last. He checked his reflection in the rearview mirror. Tired eyes, 2-day stubble he hadn't had time to shave, a shirt that needed ironing. He looked exactly like what he was, a man holding on by his fingernails. At exactly 2 p.m., he walked into the restaurant. The lunch shift was winding down, only a few tables occupied. Gerald was nowhere in sight, but Michelle sat at the host stand, typing on her phone. "Mr. Cole, she's expecting you." Michelle gestured toward the back. Conference room, not her office. That was new. Ethan nodded his thanks and headed down the hallway past the kitchen. The conference room was small, windowless, used mostly for staff meetings and vendor negotiations. Victoria sat at the head of the table, laptop open, looking every bit the CEO in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Ethan's monthly rent. She glanced up when he entered. "Close the door." Ethan did, then took a seat across from her. The table felt like a barrier between them, which maybe was the point. Victoria closed her laptop. "Thank you for coming. You made it sound like I didn't have a choice." "You always have a choice. That's something I'm learning." She folded her hands on the table. "I want to offer you a different position." Ethan blinked. "What?" "Not here at Meridian, at my corporate office. I need someone to manage building operations, maintenance oversight, vendor relations, that kind of thing. It's Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. Salary, not hourly. $48,000 a year, plus benefits." The number hung in the air between them. $48,000 was nearly $15,000 more than Ethan made now, even with the raises. And benefits meant health insurance, sick days, maybe even vacation time. "Why me?" he asked carefully. "Because you're reliable. You show up, you work hard, you don't complain. Those qualities are harder to find than you'd think. You don't know anything about my experience with building operations. I know you worked construction. That's close enough. The rest you can learn." Victoria's expression didn't shift. "This is a legitimate offer, Ethan, not a test, not a game. I need someone I can trust in that position, and I think you're capable of it." Ethan's mind raced. Monday through Friday meant weekends with Lily. 8 to 4 meant he'd be home for dinner every night. Benefits meant he could take her to a doctor without panicking about the bill. It also meant accepting help from Victoria Hale, a woman who'd already proven she saw people as chess pieces to be moved around and tested. "What's the catch?" "No catch. You'd report directly to me, which means I'd expect high performance. But the job is straightforward. Coordinate repairs, manage service contracts, handle tenant issues in the buildings we own. It's not glamorous, but it's stable." Stable. The word felt foreign. Ethan couldn't remember the last time anything in his life had been stable. "I need to think about it." Victoria's eyes narrowed slightly. "Most people would jump at an offer like this." "I'm not most people." "No, you're not." She stood, walking to the small window that overlooked the alley behind the restaurant. "Can I ask you something?" "You're going to anyway." A faint smile crossed her face. "Fair. Why do you work so hard? I've seen your schedule. Between Meridian and whatever other job you picked up, you're barely sleeping. What's driving that?" Ethan considered lying, then decided he was too tired. "My daughter needs things, school supplies, clothes, food. There's a medical bill in collections from when she had pneumonia last year. Rent goes up in January. I'm not working hard because I want to. I'm working hard because I have to." "And if you didn't have to?" "Then I'd spend more time with Lily, read her bedtime stories, help with homework, be present instead of just surviving." He met Victoria's gaze. "But that's not my reality." Victoria turned back to face him. "It could be. Take the job. Give yourself room to breathe. Why do you care?" The question came out sharper than he intended. "You fired me as a test. You watch your employees on security cameras. You built your whole business on keeping people at a distance. So why does it matter to you whether I'm drowning or not?" For the first time since Ethan had met her, Victoria looked genuinely uncomfortable. "I don't have a good answer to that." Try. She was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was lower. Because watching you work yourself to death reminds me of things I'd rather not think about. And because maybe I'm tired of being the person my father raised me to be. The honesty surprised him. Ethan had expected deflection, maybe anger, not vulnerability. Who was your father? A man who believed empathy was weakness and relationships were transactions. He built an empire on that philosophy. And when he died, I inherited it, along with all his ideas about how to run a business. Victoria's jaw tightened. I've spent 15 years trying to prove he was right. Maybe I'm starting to wonder if he wasn't. Ethan didn't know what to say to that. They stood in silence, two people from completely different worlds, connected by something neither of them fully understood. I'll think about the offer, he said finally. Don't think too long. I need someone in place by the first of the month. Ethan nodded and left the conference room. His hands were shaking slightly. He shoved them in his pockets and walked through the restaurant without making eye contact with anyone. Outside, the autumn air was sharp and clean. He sat in his car and stared at the steering wheel. $48,000. Benefits. Stable hours. It sounded too good to be true, which meant it probably was. But then again, so had getting his job back after the test firing, and that had turned out to be real, even if the reasons behind it were complicated. Ethan started the car and drove to pick up Lily from school. She ran to him with her usual enthusiasm, backpack bouncing, talking about the butterfly they'd found on the playground. And it was orange, Daddy, like really, really orange. And Sophie said it was a monarch, but I think it was just a regular butterfly wearing orange. And Lily, breathe. She giggled and took an exaggerated breath. Can we get ice cream? Ethan checked his wallet. $8. Yeah, we can get ice cream. Lily's whole face lit up, and something in Ethan's chest cracked open. This was why he worked 70-hour weeks. This was why he took jobs that paid cash under the table and skipped meals and lay awake at night doing math that never quite added up. For moments like this. For the chance to say yes instead of always saying no. They went to the ice cream place 3 blocks from their apartment. Lily got chocolate with rainbow sprinkles. Ethan got coffee, black, because it was cheapest. They sat on the bench outside and ate in comfortable silence. Daddy? Lily kicked her legs too short to reach the ground. Are you okay? Yeah, baby, I'm okay. You seem sad. Ethan looked at his daughter, 6 years old, perceptive beyond her years, already learning to read the emotional weather of the adults around her. He hated that she had to do that. I'm not sad. I'm just thinking. About what? About a job. Someone offered me a different job, and I'm trying to decide if I should take it. Lily considered this while eating her ice cream. Would it make you less tired? The question gutted him. Yeah, it would. Then you should take it. It's not that simple. Why not? Because the person offering it tested me by firing me, because I don't trust her motives, because accepting help feels like admitting I can't handle things on my own. It just isn't, Ethan said. Lily seemed to accept this. They finished their ice cream and Ethan walked her home. Mrs. Chen was waiting at their apartment door with a casserole dish. I made too much, she said, which was what she always said when she brought them food. Chicken and rice, just heat it up. Mrs. Chen, you don't have to. I know I don't have to. I want to. She pressed the dish into his hands. You look skinny. Lily looks skinny. Eat. Ethan thanked her and retreated into the apartment. Lily immediately went to the table and started her homework without being asked. Ethan heated up the casserole, and they ate dinner together while Lily told him about her math problems. After she was asleep, Ethan sat on the couch and pulled out his phone. He stared at Victoria's number for a long time before typing out a message. I need to know this is real. Not another test. If I take this job and you pull it away to see how I react, I won't recover from that. Lily won't recover from that. So I need you to be honest. Is this legitimate? He sent it before he could second-guess himself. The response came faster than he expected. It's real. I give you my word. Ethan stared at the words. A person's word didn't mean much in his experience. People promise things all the time. Employers, landlords, insurance companies. Promises were just sounds until they were backed up by action. But Victoria had given him his job back. She'd raised his pay. She'd cut his hours when she saw he was burning out. Maybe her word actually meant something. He typed back, I'll take it. When do I start? Monday. Come to the corporate office at 8. We'll handle paperwork and I'll show you around. Okay. Ethan? Yeah? You won't regret this. He didn't respond to that. He set his phone down and sat in the dark, trying to process what he'd just agreed to. A real job. Regular hours. Health insurance for Lily. It felt like standing on the edge of something, either solid ground or a cliff. He wouldn't know which until he stepped forward. Victoria sat in her penthouse with her phone in her hand, rereading the conversation with Ethan. She'd just hired an employee to a position she'd created specifically for him. The building operations manager role had existed before, but the previous person had retired 6 months ago, and she'd never bothered replacing them. She'd absorbed the duties into her own schedule because she didn't trust anyone else to do it right. Now she was handing those responsibilities to a man she barely knew, based on nothing but instinct, and the fact that watching him struggle made her uncomfortable. Michelle was going to have a field day with this. Victoria poured herself scotch and stood at the windows. The city glittered below, indifferent and vast. Somewhere out there, Ethan Cole was probably wondering if he'd made a mistake, wondering if this was another manipulation. She couldn't blame him. Her phone rang. Board member again, the same one who'd been calling all week. Victoria answered this time. Richard? Victoria, finally. I've been trying to reach you for 3 days. I've been busy. Too busy for the board? We need to discuss the Riverside property. The tenants are organizing, threatening rent strikes. Legal says we need to handle this carefully. Victoria closed her eyes. The Riverside property was a building her father had bought 20 years ago, rent-controlled apartments in a neighborhood that had since gentrified. The tenants were mostly older, mostly poor, mostly people who'd lived there for decades. Her father's strategy had been to wait them out, let units turn over naturally, then renovate and raise prices. It was effective. It was also brutal. What does legal recommend? Selective enforcement of lease violations. We can't evict everyone, but we can make examples. Show them we're serious. And if that backfires? It won't. They don't have resources for a real fight. A few evictions, the rest will fall in line. Victoria thought about Ethan, working himself sick to keep a roof over his daughter's head. Thought about what would happen if his landlord decided to make an example of him. No, she said. Richard paused. No? We're not evicting tenants for organizing. That's exactly the kind of PR nightmare we don't need. Victoria, these people are our tenants. We have a responsibility to them. Our responsibility is to shareholders. Our responsibility is to run an ethical business. The words felt foreign in her mouth. Set up a meeting with the tenant organizers. I'll negotiate with them directly. That's a mistake. It's my company, my decision. She hung up before Richard could argue further. Her hand was shaking slightly. She'd just contradicted 15 years of business philosophy, her father's entire legacy, in one conversation. And she wasn't sorry. Her phone buzzed. Text from Michelle. Please tell me you didn't hire Ethan Cole to a position that doesn't exist just because you feel guilty. Victoria smiled despite herself. The position exists. It's been vacant for 6 months. That's not what I asked. Go home, Michelle. It's late. You go home. Oh, wait. You are home. Alone. Again. Because you're emotionally unavailable and sabotage every relationship you might actually care about. Good night, Michelle. Good night, boss. Try not to do anything else impulsive. Victoria set the phone down and finished her scotch. Impulsive. That's what this was. Hiring Ethan, negotiating with tenants, questioning the foundation of everything she'd built. Impulsive or overdue? She didn't know. But for the first time in years, she was curious to find out. Monday morning arrived faster than Ethan was ready for. He dropped Lily off at school, drove to the corporate office building in Midtown, and sat in the parking garage for 10 minutes trying to calm his nerves. The building was newer than Meridian, all glass and steel, the kind of place where people wore suits and talked about quarterly projections. Ethan had worn his best pants and a button-down shirt, but he still felt underdressed. The lobby was marble and minimalist. A security guard directed him to the 11th floor. The elevator was fast and silent. Ethan's reflection stared back at him from the polished doors, a man who looked like he was waiting for the other shoe to drop. Michelle met him when the doors opened. Mr. Cole, welcome. How was the drive? Fine. Good. Miss Hale is finishing up a call. I'll show you to your office. I have an office? Michelle smiled. Did you think you'd be working out of a closet? The office was small but real. Desk, chair, window overlooking the street, filing cabinets along one wall. Ethan stood in the doorway and tried to process it. Coffee? Michelle asked. Sure. She left him alone. Ethan walked to the window and looked out at the city. From 11 floors up, everything looked smaller, manageable, like maybe the world wasn't actively trying to crush him after all. You came. He turned. Victoria stood in the doorway, dressed in a navy suit, hair pulled back, looking every inch the executive. You told me to. I also gave you an out. You could have changed your mind. I thought about it. And? Ethan gestured around the office. I'm here. Victoria nodded slowly. Good. Let's go over your responsibilities. They spent the next 2 hours going through contracts, vendor lists, maintenance schedules. The job was exactly what Victoria had described. Coordinate repairs, manage relationships with building contractors, handle tenant complaints that escalated beyond property managers. It was also overwhelming. Ethan took notes, asked questions, tried to absorb information faster than it was coming at him. You'll figure it out, Victoria said when she noticed him getting lost in the details. I'm not expecting perfection on day one. What are you expecting? Honesty. If you don't know something, ask. If you make a mistake, own it. That's all. Michelle appeared with lunch, sandwiches from a place down the street. They ate in Victoria's office while going over the Riverside property situation. The tenants want a meeting, Victoria said. They're claiming we're not maintaining the building properly. Broken elevators, heat issues, water pressure problems. Are we maintaining it properly? Ethan asked. Victoria hesitated. That's what I need you to find out. Go to the property tomorrow. Walk the building. Talk to tenants if they'll talk to you. Give me an honest assessment. And if the assessment is that we're not maintaining it, then we fix it. Ethan studied her. Your board's not going to like that. The board doesn't run this company. I do. She met his gaze. Do you have a problem with that approach? No, just surprised. Why? Because most landlords don't care what tenants think. Victoria's expression shifted, something like discomfort. I'm trying to be better than most landlords. The admission hung between them. Ethan didn't know how to respond, so he just nodded. The rest of the day was administrative, HR paperwork, building access badges, setting up his email. By 4 p.m., Ethan's brain was full, and his body was exhausted in a completely different way than restaurant work. Mental fatigue instead of physical. It would take getting used to. You did well today, Victoria said as he was getting ready to leave. See you tomorrow. Ethan drove to pick up Lily, who was vibrating with energy from a day at school. How was the new job? She asked as they walked home. Different, but good, I think. Are you less tired? Ask me in a week. That night, Lily wanted to draw. Ethan sat with her at the kitchen table, helping her color a picture of a house with 3 stick figures, one big, one small, and one off to the side. Who's that? He pointed to the 3rd figure. Mommy, she's watching us. Ethan's chest tightened. Does she look happy? Lily considered the drawing. Yeah, because we're okay. Are we okay? You said we are. I said we would be. Lily looked up at him with dark, serious eyes. What's the difference? Ethan didn't have an answer. He just pulled her close and kissed the top of her head. Later, after Lily was asleep, Ethan sat on the couch and thought about the day. The office, the responsibilities, Victoria's unexpected willingness to challenge her own board. Maybe this was real. Maybe he'd actually caught a break, or maybe the other shoe was still waiting to drop, and he was too tired to see it coming. Either way, he'd show up tomorrow and do the work. Because that's what he did. That's all he knew how to do. His phone buzzed. Text from Victoria. Thank you for taking a chance on this. I know it wasn't easy. He stared at the message for a long time before responding. Thank you for offering it. It wasn't much. But it was honest. And right now, honesty was all either of them had to give. The Riverside property was worse than Ethan expected. He stood in the lobby on Tuesday morning, notebook in hand, and took inventory. Peeling paint on the walls, water stains on the ceiling tiles. One elevator with an out-of-order sign that looked months old. The smell of mildew hung in the air, faint but persistent. An older woman emerged from the stairwell, breathing hard. She stopped when she saw him, eyes narrowing. You from the management company? Sort of. I work for the owner. I'm here to assess the building. About time. She shifted her grocery bags. Elevator's been broken since August. I'm on the 7th floor. You know what it's like climbing 7 flights at 73? No, ma'am. It's hell. That's what it is. She started towards the stairs, then paused. You actually going to fix things, or are you just here to write a report nobody reads? I'm going to try to fix things. She studied him for a long moment. We'll see. Ethan spent the next 3 hours walking every floor, knocking on doors, talking to tenants who answered. The complaints were consistent. Broken elevator, inconsistent heat, low water pressure on the upper floors, maintenance requests that went unanswered for weeks. By noon, his notebook was full, and his understanding of the situation was clear. The building wasn't being maintained. At all. He called Victoria from the lobby. How bad is it? She asked without preamble. Bad. The elevator's been broken for 4 months. Half the radiators don't work properly. There's a leak in the roof that's causing water damage on the top floor. This isn't just deferred maintenance. This is neglect. Victoria was quiet for a moment. How much to fix it? I'd need to get contractor quotes, but rough estimate? 60, 70,000. Maybe more. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of problems. Another pause. Do it. Get the quotes. Start with the elevator and the roof. I want them fixed within a month. Your board's going to lose their minds. Let me worry about the board. You just worry about the building. Ethan hung up and looked around the lobby. $70,000 to fix problems that should never have been problems in the first place. It was the right thing to do, but it was also proof that Victoria's father had run his empire by squeezing people who couldn't afford to be squeezed. He spent the afternoon calling contractors, scheduling inspections, documenting everything for the inevitable fight with the board. By the time he left at 4, his head hurt and his stomach was tight with stress, but at least he was home for dinner. Lily was at Mrs. Chen's apartment when he arrived. She ran to him with a drawing of what appeared to be a very optimistic interpretation of a cat. Look what I made! That's great, baby. Is it a lion? It's Mr. Nibbles, the hamster, from school. Right, of course. Mrs. Chen handed him a container of soup. She ate 2 servings. Growing girl. Thank you. Ethan pulled out his wallet, but Mrs. Chen waved him off. No charge today. She helped me fold laundry. We're even. Ethan wanted to argue, but he was learning to accept help when it was offered. I appreciate it. Back in their apartment, Lily chattered about her day while Ethan heated up the soup. They ate together at the small table, and for the first time in months, Ethan wasn't distracted by exhaustion or worry about his next shift. He was just present. Daddy, you're smiling, Lily observed. Am I? Yeah, you look happy. I am happy. I'm here with you. Lily beamed. Can we play a game after dinner? They played Go Fish until bedtime. Lily won 3 games in a row, probably cheating, but Ethan didn't care. When he tucked her in, she wrapped her arms around his neck and squeezed tight. I like when you're home, she whispered. Me too, baby. That night, Ethan sat on the couch with his laptop and compiled his notes on the Riverside property. He wrote up a detailed report with photos, contractor estimates, and a proposed timeline. Then he emailed it to Victoria with a subject line that read, You're not going to like this. Her response came 20 minutes later. I expected worse. Move forward with the repairs. And Ethan? Thank you for being thorough. He stared at the email. In his experience, landlords didn't thank people for finding expensive problems. They shot the messenger and buried the report. Victoria was different. He still didn't entirely trust it, but he was starting to believe it might be real. The board meeting was exactly as contentious as Victoria had anticipated. Richard stood at the head of the conference table, arms crossed, face red. $70,000 for a building that's already operating at a loss. It's operating at a loss because we're not maintaining it, Victoria said evenly. If we fix the problems, we can justify raising rents when leases renew. This is an investment. An investment in tenants who are actively organizing against us. An investment in doing the right thing. Richard laughed, short and sharp. The right thing? Victoria, we're not a charity. We're a business. A business that operates in the real world with real people. People who deserve functional elevators and heat that works. Another board member, Margaret, leaned forward. I understand the sentiment, Victoria, but Richard has a point. We have shareholders to consider. Spending $70,000 on a property that's barely breaking even is going to raise questions. Then let them ask questions. I'll answer them. Will you? Richard's voice was cold. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're making emotional decisions instead of strategic ones. First, you refused to evict the organizers. Now you're throwing money at problems your father deliberately ignored for 20 years. What's next? Free rent for everyone? Victoria's jaw tightened. My father's strategy was to wait for people to die so he could raise prices. If that's the legacy you want me to continue, you're going to be disappointed. The room went silent. Margaret exchanged a glance with Richard. The other three board members looked uncomfortable. Your father built this company, Richard said quietly. Everything you have is because of his vision. My father built an empire on the backs of people who couldn't fight back. I'm not interested in maintaining that. Then maybe you're not the right person to run this company. The words hung in the air like a threat. Victoria stood slowly, placing her hands flat on the table. Let me be very clear. I am the majority shareholder. I make the decisions. If you don't like those decisions, you're welcome to resign from the board. She met Richard's eyes. But while I'm in charge, we're going to run an ethical business, which means fixing the building. End of discussion. She left the conference room before anyone could respond. Her hands were shaking, but she kept her pace measured, controlled. She didn't stop until she reached her office and closed the door. Michelle appeared 30 seconds later with coffee she didn't ask for. That was either very brave or very stupid, Michelle said, setting the cup on Victoria's desk. Probably both. Richard's going to make trouble. Let him try. Michelle sat in the chair across from her. Can I ask you something? You're going to anyway. What changed? 2 months ago, you would have sided with Richard. You would have done exactly what your father would have done. Victoria looked out the window at the city. I hired someone who reminded me that people aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet, that the decisions we make have real consequences for real lives. Ethan, yes, you know people are going to think you're doing this because you have feelings for him. I don't have feelings for him. Michelle raised an eyebrow. You created a job for him. You're restructuring your entire business philosophy based on watching him struggle. You text him after work hours to discuss building issues. At 10 p.m., Victoria didn't answer. Michelle's expression softened. There's nothing wrong with caring about someone, you know. In my experience, caring about people just gives them power to hurt you. Your father really did a number on you, didn't he? Victoria sipped her coffee. It was too hot, but she drank it anyway. He taught me how to survive in a world that doesn't care about weakness. Maybe, Michelle stood, or maybe he taught you to be afraid of the one thing that actually makes us strong. She left before Victoria could argue. Victoria sat alone in her office, staring at the spreadsheet that showed the Riverside Properties financials. $70,000 was a lot of money to spend on people who might not even appreciate it, but it was the right thing to do. And for the first time in her life, Victoria was more interested in being right than being profitable. Her phone buzzed. Text from Ethan. Elevator contractor can start Monday if we give the go-ahead. Roof guy needs another week. Should I schedule them? Yes. Schedule them both. Board approve the budget? The board doesn't have a choice. There was a pause before his next message. You're going to make enemies doing this. I already have enemies. Might as well earn them honestly. Another pause. Then, for what it's worth, the tenants at Riverside appreciate it. Mrs. Chen in 7B told me to tell you thank you. Victoria stared at the message. She didn't know Mrs. Chen, didn't know any of the tenants by name. To her father, they would have been just lease agreements and rental income. But to Ethan, they were people. And somehow, his perspective was becoming hers. Tell Mrs. Chen she's welcome. And Ethan, thank you for caring about this. She sent the message before she could second-guess it. Then she returned to her work and tried not to think about what Michelle had said. 3 weeks later, the elevator at Riverside was fixed and the roof was patched. Ethan stood in the lobby and watched tenants use the elevator for the first time in 5 months. An older man got on, pressed the button for the 6th floor, and actually smiled. "Feels like a miracle," he said. "Just maintenance," Ethan replied. "Same thing around here." Word spread through the building fast. By the end of the week, Ethan was getting thank you cards slipped under his office door. One tenant baked him cookies. Another invited him to a building-wide potluck to celebrate. He took Lily to the potluck on Saturday. She was shy at first, clinging to his hand, but within 20 minutes she was playing with other kids in the courtyard while Ethan talked to tenants about remaining maintenance issues. Mrs. Chen from 7B found him near the snack table. "You're the one who got the elevator fixed." "I just coordinated it." Ms. Hale approved the budget. "Still, you listened. That matters." She pressed a container into his hands. "Dumplings, homemade. For you and your daughter." "You didn't have to." "I wanted to. That's how this works. You help us, we help you." Ethan accepted the container with gratitude he didn't quite know how to express. He found Lily in the courtyard, convinced her to say goodbye to her new friends, and walked home with her chattering about the games they'd played. "Can we come back?" she asked. "Maybe. We'll see." "You always say we'll see." "Because we always will see." Lily laughed at the wordplay. They climbed the stairs to their apartment, and Ethan heated up the dumplings for dinner. They were perfect, pork and cabbage, pan-fried just right. "These are better than yours," Lily said through a mouthful. "I don't make dumplings." "That's why they're better." Ethan couldn't argue with that logic. Later, after Lily was asleep, he sat on the couch and realized he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Not happiness, exactly. More like peace. The constant panic that had lived in his chest since Emma died had faded to a dull hum. His phone buzzed. "Victoria. Michelle tells me the Riverside potluck was a success. You have spies everywhere. I prefer the term well-informed. Did you enjoy it?" "Lily did. That's what matters." "And you?" Ethan thought about how to answer. "It was nice. Seeing people happy about something I helped make happen. That doesn't happen much in my line of work." "You mean your previous line of work? You're not a server anymore, still getting used to that." "How's Lily doing? You mentioned she was having trouble at school." The question surprised him. Victoria remembered details, filed them away, brought them up later. It should have felt intrusive. Instead, it felt like she was paying attention. "Better. Her teacher says she's more engaged. I think having me home more helps." "Good. That was the point." Ethan stared at that message. Was it? "I thought the point was building operations. The point was giving you room to breathe. Building operations was just the excuse." He didn't know what to say to that. Before he could formulate a response, another message came through. "I'm sorry. That was too honest. Forget I said it." "Victoria." "Yes?" "Thank you." "For what?" "For giving a damn. Not many people do." There was a long pause before her response came. "You're welcome. Sleep well, Ethan." He set the phone down and sat in the dark, thinking about a world where Victoria Hale cared about people and proved it through actions instead of just words. A world where he had stable work and time with his daughter and dumplings from grateful tenants. It felt fragile, like something that could shatter if he looked at it too hard. But for now, it was real. And that was enough. The crisis came on a Thursday afternoon. Ethan was at the office reviewing maintenance schedules when his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. "This is Ethan." "Mr. Cole, this is Principal Davis from Oakwood Elementary. There's been an incident with Lily." His heart stopped. "What kind of incident?" "She's okay, but she's in the nurse's office. She fell during recess and hit her head. We think she should be checked out by a doctor." Ethan was already grabbing his keys. "I'm on my way." He made it to the school in 12 minutes, breaking at least 3 traffic laws. Lily sat on the nurse's cot, holding an ice pack to her forehead, eyes red from crying. "Daddy!" He was across the room in 2 steps, kneeling beside her. "Hey, baby, let me see." She lowered the ice pack. There was a bruise forming above her left eyebrow, angry and purple. No blood, but the skin was swelling. "What hurts?" "My head. And my arm." She held up her right wrist, which was also bruising. The nurse appeared beside him. She landed on her arm when she fell. I don't think it's broken, but she should get an x-ray to be sure. And with the head injury, a doctor should check for concussion. Ethan's mind raced through logistics. Hospital meant ER. ER meant bills. But none of that mattered because Lily was hurt and needed care. Okay, thank you. He scooped Lily up carefully. Come on, sweetheart. We're going to the hospital. I don't want to. I know, but we need to make sure you're okay. The drive to St. Catharines was the longest 15 minutes of his life. Lily cried quietly in the back seat, holding her arm. Ethan talked to her the whole way, keeping her alert, watching for signs of serious head injury. The ER was crowded. They waited 40 minutes before being seen. Ethan filled out paperwork with shaking hands, acutely aware that he now had insurance through Victoria's company, but had no idea if it would cover this. A nurse finally called them back. Lily got an x-ray of her wrist, not broken, just badly bruised, and a neurological exam for the head injury. Mild concussion, rest, ice, monitor for worsening symptoms. She'll be fine, the doctor said. Kids are resilient. Just keep her quiet for a few days. No screens, no rough play. If she seems disoriented or starts vomiting, bring her back immediately. Ethan thanked her and carried Lily back to the car. She was half asleep by the time he buckled her in, the adrenaline crash hitting hard. He drove home carefully, got her upstairs, and settled her on the couch with her rabbit and a blanket. Then he sat beside her and finally let himself breathe. She was okay. Bruised and sore, but okay. His phone buzzed. He'd texted Victoria from the waiting room to let her know he had to leave work early. Her response was immediate. Is Lily all right? Concussion and a bruised wrist. Doctor says she'll be fine. Thank God. Do you need anything? Ethan looked at his daughter, curled up on the couch, eyes closed. He thought about the hospital bill that would arrive in a few weeks, about the days he'd need to take off work to monitor her, about the constant, grinding pressure of parenthood. I'm okay. Thank you for asking. Ethan, do you need anything? He stared at the question. The honest answer was yes. Yes, he needed help. Yes, he was scared. Yes, the weight of keeping Lily safe and healthy and happy was crushing him. But admitting that felt like failure. No. We're good. Victoria's response took longer this time. You don't have to be strong all the time. Take tomorrow off. Stay with Lily. I'll handle everything at the office. I can work from home. No, you can be a father. That's more important. Ethan's throat tightened. He set the phone down and looked at Lily. She was breathing deep and even, exhausted from pain and fear. He could take tomorrow off, could actually be present instead of managing crises from a distance. He texted Victoria back. Thank you. Stop thanking me. Just take care of your daughter. That night, Ethan slept on the floor beside the couch, waking every 2 hours to check on Lily like the doctor had instructed. Each time, she was fine, sleeping peacefully, no vomiting, no disorientation. But around 3 a.m., she woke up crying. My head hurts. Ethan sat up, suddenly alert. How bad? On a scale of 1 to 10. 6. He got her children's ibuprofen and water. She took it without complaint and curled back under her blanket. Daddy, will you stay with me? I'm right here, baby. I'm not going anywhere. Promise? I promise. She fell back asleep within minutes. Ethan stayed on the floor, watching her breathe, and thought about all the promises he'd made over the years. To Emma, before she died. To Lily, every day since. To himself, late at night when the fear got too heavy. Most of those promises he'd broken, not intentionally, but circumstances had a way of making liars out of everyone. But this one, staying with Lily, being present, keeping her safe, this one he could keep. As long as Victoria kept giving him the space to do it. His phone lit up with the message. He checked it, expecting work. It was Victoria. Sent at 3:17 a.m. I know you're probably awake checking on her. You're a good father, Ethan. She's lucky to have you. He read it 3 times before responding. You're awake too. Insomnia. Old friend, thank you. For understanding. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be long. Ethan set the phone down and closed his eyes. Tomorrow would be long. But for the first time in years, he wasn't facing it alone. Lily recovered over the weekend, but the hospital bill arrived on Tuesday. Ethan opened it at his desk during lunch, even though he knew he shouldn't. The total made his vision blur. $300 after insurance. He read the itemization twice, trying to understand how an X-ray and a 20-minute consultation could cost that much. The explanation of benefits was dense with medical codes and percentages that didn't add up to anything resembling logic. His new insurance was better than nothing, but better than nothing still left him holding a bill that would take months to pay off. He was staring at the numbers when Victoria knocked on his open door. Bad news? Ethan folded the bill and shoved it in his desk drawer. Just life. She didn't move from the doorway. Can I come in? It's your building. Victoria sat in the chair across from his desk, which she'd never done before. Usually their conversations happened in her office or the hallway. This felt different, more personal. How's Lily? Back to school today. Bruises are fading. Ethan tried to sound normal. She's tough. She gets that from you. Her mother, actually. Emma was the strong one. Victoria was quiet for a moment. You don't talk about her much. Not much to say. She died. We survived. That's the story. I doubt it's that simple. Ethan leaned back in his chair. Why are you here, Victoria? Because you've been staring at that piece of paper like it contains your execution order, and I want to know what's wrong. Nothing's wrong. Ethan. He pulled the bill back out and slid it across the desk. Victoria picked it up, scanned it, and her expression shifted. This is outrageous. It's American healthcare. Your insurance should have covered more than this. The plan has a high deductible. I haven't hit it yet. Ethan took the bill back. It's fine. I'll pay it off. How? The question was blunt enough to spark anger. That's really not your concern. You're right. It's not. Victoria stood. But I'm making it my concern anyway. Let me handle this. Absolutely not. Ethan, I said no. He stood too, needing to be on equal footing. I appreciate what you've done for me. The job, the raise, all of it. But I'm not taking charity. It's not charity. It's basic human decency. It's the same thing. Victoria's jaw tightened. Why is accepting help so difficult for you? Because every time I accept help, it comes with strings. People want something in return, even if they don't say it. And I can't afford to owe anyone anything. I don't want anything from you. Everyone wants something. The words hung between them, sharp and final. Victoria looked at him for a long moment, and Ethan saw something in her expression he couldn't quite name. Hurt, maybe. Or disappointment. Fine, she said quietly. Handle it yourself. She left without another word. Ethan sat back down and stared at the bill until the numbers blurred again. He'd just pushed away the one person who'd actually tried to help him. And the worst part was, he didn't know how to stop doing it. The scandal broke 3 days later. Ethan was working late when Michelle appeared in his doorway, face pale. You need to see this. She handed him her phone. The headline on the local business news site read, Hale Properties CEO under fire for misuse of company funds. Ethan's stomach dropped. He skimmed the article. According to unnamed sources on the board, Victoria had spent over $100,000 on unnecessary repairs to rent-controlled properties while ignoring more profitable projects. The article painted her as fiscally irresponsible, possibly incompetent, definitely unfit to run her father's empire. This is Richard, Ethan said. Obviously. But it's out there now. The board's calling for an emergency meeting tomorrow. They want her to step down. Can they do that? She's majority shareholder, so no, but they can make her life hell trying. Michelle took her phone back. Where is she? I don't know. She left around 4. Ethan tried calling. It went straight to voicemail. He texted. No response. By the time he left the office at 8, 3 more articles had been published, each more damning than the last. Social media was picking it up. Someone had leaked internal financial documents showing the Riverside expenses. Another leak detailed Victoria's confrontation with the board. She was being crucified for doing the right thing. Ethan drove to her building without thinking about it. The doorman recognized him from a previous delivery and let him up. He knocked on her penthouse door, not sure if she'd answer. She did. She looked exhausted. No makeup, hair down, wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt he'd never seen her in. Human instead of untouchable. Ethan, what are you doing here? I saw the articles. Victoria stepped aside to let him in. The penthouse was everything he'd expected. Expensive, minimalist, cold. She walked to the kitchen and poured herself scotch without offering him any. "They're going to destroy me," she said flatly. "Richard leaked everything. The board's voting tomorrow to recommend I resign. You're majority shareholder. They can't force you out." "No. But they can make it impossible for me to run the company. Constant challenges, media leaks, shareholder lawsuits, death by 1,000 cuts." She drank the scotch in one swallow. "My father would have seen this coming. He would have had Richard dealt with months ago. Your father also wouldn't have fixed the Riverside building. Maybe he was smarter than I am." Ethan walked closer, stopping at the kitchen island. "You did the right thing. The right thing is going to cost me everything I've built. Then build something different." Victoria laughed, but there was no humor in it. "With what? If I lose the board's confidence, investors will pull out. Banks will question my credit lines. I'll be fighting fires for years." "So fight them." "I'm tired, Ethan." She set down the glass. "I'm tired of fighting, tired of proving myself, tired of being alone in a world that rewards cruelty and punishes compassion." The vulnerability in her voice cracked something open in Ethan's chest. He'd spent weeks keeping her at arm's length, refusing help, maintaining distance. And here she was, falling apart, with no one to catch her. "You're not alone," he said quietly. Victoria looked at him. "Aren't I?" "No." Ethan moved around the island. "You've got Michelle, you've got employees who respect you. You've got tenants at Riverside who are grateful someone finally gave a damn about them. And you?" The question was soft, almost hesitant. Ethan met her eyes. "Yeah, you've got me too." Something shifted in her expression. "Why?" "I tested you. I manipulated you. I'm not a good person, Ethan." "Neither am I. I push people away. I refuse help. I'm terrible at letting anyone in." He paused. "But you showed up anyway. You gave me a chance when you didn't have to. You cared about Lily without ever meeting her. You're trying to be better than what you were taught to be. That counts for something." Victoria's eyes were bright. She looked away quickly, but not before Ethan saw the tears. "I don't know how to fix this," she said. "Maybe you don't have to fix it. Maybe you just have to survive it." "Is that what you did when Emma died?" Ethan thought about those first months after the accident, the impossible weight of grief, the nights he'd considered just giving up because it would be easier than continuing, the moment he'd looked at Lily and realized she needed him to keep going. "Yeah," he said. "I survived. One day at a time, some days 1 hour at a time, and eventually it got easier." Victoria wiped her eyes quickly. "I'm sorry. This is unprofessional. So is me being here at 9 p.m. She almost smiled. "Fair point." They stood in silence for a moment. Ethan knew he should leave. This was crossing lines, professional, personal, all of them. But something kept him rooted. "The board meeting tomorrow," he said. "What time?" 10 a.m. "I'll be there." "Ethan, you don't have to—" "I know, but I'm going to be there anyway." Victoria studied him. "Why?" "Because someone should stand with you. And because you'd do the same for me." The tears came back faster this time. Victoria didn't try to hide them. Ethan stepped forward and pulled her into a hug, awkward and uncertain. She stiffened for a second, then relaxed against him, her shoulders shaking. They stood like that for a long time. When she finally pulled back, her face was blotchy and her eyes were red. "Thank you," she said. "Don't thank me yet. I'm terrible at board meetings." That got a real smile. Small, but real. Ethan left shortly after, driving home through empty streets. When he got back to his apartment, Lily was asleep and Mrs. Chen was knitting on his couch. "Late night," she observed. "Work emergency." Mrs. Chen gathered her knitting. "The lady who gave you the job, she in trouble?" "How did you—" "I read the news. I'm old, not dead." She patted his arm. "You help her. She helped you. That's how it works." After Mrs. Chen left, Ethan checked on Lily, then sat on the couch and stared at his phone. He pulled up the articles again, reading through the comments. Most were brutal. A few defended Victoria. None of them knew the full story. He opened his email and started typing. The boardroom was tense when Ethan arrived at 9:45. He'd worn his best suit, the one he'd bought for Emma's funeral and hadn't touched since. It still fit, Barely. Michelle was already there, setting up Victoria's presentation materials. She looked surprised to see him. "What are you doing here?" "Moral support." "This is a closed board meeting." "Then they can kick me out." Victoria arrived at 9:55, dressed in a power suit, hair perfect, expression unreadable. If she'd been crying last night, there was no evidence of it now. She saw Ethan and stopped. "You actually came." "I told you I would." "You should leave. This is going to get ugly." "I've seen ugly before." The board members filed in. Richard led them, looking satisfied. Margaret followed, expression neutral. 3 others Ethan didn't recognize took seats around the table. Richard noticed Ethan immediately. "This is a private meeting." "Mr. Cole is here at my invitation," Victoria said smoothly. "As the employee most directly affected by the issues we're discussing, his perspective is relevant. We're not here to discuss building operations. We're here to discuss your leadership." "Then let's discuss it." Victoria sat at the head of the table. Ethan took a seat against the wall, out of the way but present. Richard wasted no time. "You've spent $120,000 on unnecessary repairs to underperforming properties. You've ignored profitable development opportunities. You've openly defied board recommendations. This pattern of behavior suggests you're unfit to lead this company." "The repairs weren't unnecessary," Victoria said calmly. "They were legally required and morally imperative." "Morally imperative?" Richard's voice dripped with contempt. "We're not running a charity. We're also not running a slumlord operation. The Riverside property was in violation of multiple housing codes. If we'd ignored it much longer, we'd be facing lawsuits and fines that would cost far more than the repairs." Margaret leaned forward. "Is that true?" Victoria slid a folder across the table. "Building Inspector's Report. We had 30 days to address critical violations or face penalties up to $500,000. The repairs cost $120,000. I'd call that a bargain." Richard's expression tightened. "You should have consulted the board before moving forward." "I informed the board. You chose to ignore the legal implications in favor of the political ones. Because you're making decisions based on emotion instead of strategy. I'm making decisions based on basic human decency, something this board seems to have forgotten." The room erupted. Board members talked over each other, voices rising. Ethan watched Victoria hold her ground, calm and steady, while chaos swirled around her. Finally, Margaret raised her hand. "Enough. Richard, do you have a formal proposal?" "I move that Victoria Hale be removed as CEO, with the board appointing an interim replacement until a suitable permanent candidate is found." "I second," another board member said immediately. Margaret looked at Victoria. "Do you have anything to say before we vote?" Victoria stood. "Yes, I inherited this company from my father. He built it on a foundation of exploitation and intimidation. He squeezed every dollar from people who couldn't fight back, and he taught me that was strength. For 15 years, I believed him. I ran this company exactly as he would have." She paused, looking at each board member in turn. "But I was wrong. And he was wrong. You don't build something lasting by crushing people. You build it by lifting them up, by treating them as human beings instead of revenue streams. The Riverside repairs weren't just legally necessary. They were the right thing to do. And if this board can't see that, then maybe I'm not the problem. Maybe you are." Richard stood. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. Emotional decision-making. Your father would be ashamed." "My father would be proud of maximizing profit at any cost. And I don't want to be him anymore." "Then you don't belong in this chair." "Maybe not, but I'm not leaving it." Victoria's voice was steel. "I'm majority shareholder. You can vote to remove me, but it won't change anything. This is still my company, and I'm going to run it my way." Richard looked around the table. "All in favor of removing Victoria Hale as CEO?" 3 hands went up, Richard and 2 others. "Opposed?" Margaret raised her hand. 1 other board member joined her. Richard turned to the final member, an older man who'd been silent the whole meeting. "David?" David looked at Victoria. "I knew your father. He was brilliant, ruthless, and utterly alone when he died. No friends, no family except you. No legacy except buildings and bank accounts." He lowered his hand. "I vote to keep Victoria as CEO." The vote was tied. Richard's face went purple. This isn't over. Yes, it is. Victoria sat back down. The motion fails, meeting adjourned. Richard stormed out, taking his 2 supporters with him. The others left more quietly. Only Margaret remained, gathering her papers slowly. That was brave, she said, and probably stupid. Probably, Victoria agreed. For what it's worth, I think you're right. Your father built an empire, but he built it alone. You're trying to build something different. Margaret paused. I'd like to help, if you'll let me. Victoria's expression softened. I'd appreciate that. After Margaret left, Victoria slumped in her chair. Ethan walked over and sat beside her. You okay? I have no idea. You won. Barely, and Richard's going to keep fighting. Let him. You've got people on your side now. Victoria looked at him. Why did you really come today? Ethan thought about the question, about all the reasons he'd shown up, gratitude, loyalty, obligation, but underneath all of that was something simpler. Because you needed someone to stand with you, and nobody should have to fight alone. Victoria's eyes welled up again. She blinked quickly. I'm not good at this. Needing people. Letting them in. Me neither. We can figure it out together. She reached over and took his hand. It was a small gesture, but it felt enormous. Ethan squeezed back, and they sat in silence while the city hummed outside the windows. 3 months later, Ethan stood on the rooftop of the Riverside building and looked at Victoria's latest project. She'd converted the roof into a garden, not a fancy one, just planters with vegetables and flowers, some benches, a small play area for kids. It was simple, practical, and completely unexpected. The tenants can use it however they want, Victoria explained, standing beside him. Community garden, play space, whatever. It's theirs. This is going to cost you. I know. I don't care. Lily ran past them, chasing another kid from the building. Her wrist had healed completely, and the bruise on her forehead had faded to nothing. She was laughing, free and happy, in a way that made Ethan's chest tight. She's doing well, Victoria observed. Yeah, she is. And you? Ethan looked at her. They'd been dancing around something for months now, a connection that went beyond employer and employee, beyond gratitude and obligation, something neither of them quite knew how to name. I'm good. Better than I've been in a long time. Victoria smiled. Me too. They stood together, watching Lily play, and Ethan thought about how much had changed. He had a job that didn't destroy him. Lily had stability. Victoria had started rebuilding her company into something that actually helped people instead of just extracting wealth from them. It wasn't perfect. Richard was still making trouble, threatening lawsuits and media leaks. The board was divided. Some tenants at Riverside still didn't trust that the changes would last. But imperfect was better than nothing. And maybe, Ethan thought, perfect wasn't the goal anyway. Can I ask you something? Victoria said. Sure. That day in my penthouse, when I was falling apart, why did you really come? Ethan thought about lying, making it about work or obligation, but he was tired of lying. Because I care about you, and I didn't want you to be alone. Victoria turned to face him fully. I care about you too, you and Lily both, more than I probably should. Why shouldn't you? Because I'm your boss, because it's complicated, because I don't know how to do this without screwing it up. Join the club. Ethan smiled slightly. I haven't figured out how to do any of this either, but maybe we don't have to have it all figured out. What do we have to do? Show up, be honest, try not to push each other away when things get hard. Victoria considered this. I can do that. Yeah? Yeah. Lily ran back over, breathless and grinning. Daddy, can we stay longer? Ethan looked at Victoria. She nodded. Yeah, baby, we can stay. Lily cheered and ran back to her new friends. Ethan and Victoria stood side by side, watching the sunset paint the city gold. Thank you, Victoria said quietly. For what? For seeing me. Not the CEO or the Ice Queen or whatever else people think I am. Just me. Ethan took her hand again, the gesture more natural now. You did the same for me. They stayed on that rooftop until the stars came out, surrounded by tenants and children and the small, imperfect community Victoria had started building. It wasn't the empire her father had envisioned. It wasn't ruthless or isolated or built on other people's suffering. It was something better, something human. And as Lily fell asleep against Ethan's shoulder and Victoria leaned against his other side, he realized that this messy, complicated, beautiful thing they were building together was exactly what strength looked like. Not standing alone, but choosing who you stand for and standing with them, no matter what comes next.